And to unpack this, I'm joined on the news by Abubakar Umar, a financial analyst. Good evening. Glad to have you join me.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yes, could you share with us what factors are currently driving Nigeria's high inflation rate, particularly the significant rise in food prices? Are there any global or domestic events contributing to this rise?
Thank you very much. As you know, Nigerians are actually deeply concerned, considering we understand that the inflation in the country is exchange rate is also one of the major things that push the inflation. And Nigerians are concerned now that inflation is actually exchange rate is moving down, and then inflation has continue going up. I think if you understand what is driving inflation in Nigeria, majorly is the CPI, which is consisting of energy basket, the cost of transportation, which is also driven by the fuel costs in the market. So those items, the food, transportation, which is also driven by fuel, it's one of the things that is actually pushing inflation higher. And the easy way to solve this kind of problem is that to ensure that the cost of our fuel has been steady for long. And then Nigerians are so eager to understand that the exchange rate that has moved down will actually go up. And this is a major thing to concern. The reason is that when exchange rate is down, it's actually the effect or the positive effect of it will have to be lagging. So, and then if it's lag, then that means the positive net reduction you have on your foreign exchange rate will be affected on the next, quarter or next month that we have. But then we have a very serious concern again, considering there is a rise in the cost of electricity. And instead of for us to begin seeing adjustment in the cost of food that is coming in that April and May, we have a tariff that was increased to around 220, and that alone will actually trigger manufacturers to adjust their costs in one side of the day, which will make your inflation in April to be something again unfavorable. So those are the issues that we are facing for the meantime. But then the food prices that we have, definitely it's going to take effect. We are going to see a reduction. It might not be significant, as considering that reduction in prices, it's something that marketers are not somehow always welcoming. It is just like fixing something tends to be very difficult and take time than destroying. So this is the situation we are actually facing with regard to that inflation.
Quite a number of issues you have highlighted. But a slowdown in month-on-month inflation suggests a potential peak. Do you think this trend is likely to continue?
I would like to say it will likely continue, but then I have to, consider the cost of energy. Energy is a very critical aspect, and sometimes to the perceptions of producers, because when you look at the increase in the cost of energy, on one side there is argument that it will increase cost of production because cost of power has tripled. That is acceptable. But then when you look at the other side of argument, if a potential manufacturer is actually using a diesel to produce, and then he has a constant 20-hour of power, when you compare the two costs together, you realize that there's a reduction in the cost of the energy that is spent to produce. But again, oftentimes, because entrepreneurs are tend to make profit, even if there is a reduction in the cost of energy because of him using electricity, he will want to either maintain the selling price level, which means you cannot see reduction in the price of goods and services he is selling to the end user. So we come to about the issue of human psychology, to how they react to change in prices. So I think the major thing we expect is that we have seen, based on the report, that the inflation is slowing down, which is a good thing, of course. So the first thing is that you have to get a slowdown whereby your month-on-month increase will stop increasing. And then when you have a stoppage of the increase, then you now begin to target reduction. Because the way we are eager to see reduction, it might not necessarily come very early. It might come at a later time. If we sustain and improve on the current gains that we are now witnessing through the reduction, the exchange rate that is, the Naira gaining strength over time.
Let's talk a bit about the dichotomy between the urban and rural area with respect to inflation. Data shows a wider inflation gap between urban and rural areas. Could this be caused by, what are the causes of this disparity? And then what are the potential consequences for Nigerians living in these areas?
When you look at the urban and the rural, you can see the urban is actually a cost push inflation that is actually moving. And I think the basic example I will give you is that what is happening in the rural area is akin to what happened in last year when they tried to implement, cashless policy. In the rural area, they have short of cash. They do not have money to actually buy those goods, which means either you are going to sell that good at a price that people can actually afford, or you risk losing the products, which is not going to be the same with the urban area where there are people who has money that no matter what's the price you put, there are those that are going to patronize. So I think those kind of issues are the two dichotomy that make it between the urban and rural area. And then I was also seeing reports that in some areas the price of rice has also reduced by 15 to 20,000 or so. So in rural area they have to turn the market in a way that the volume will go, because if you put at a price that they do not have, you are going to have a problem. I think what I'm trying to explain here is the issue between demand and cost push inflation in those two kind of scenario. So what happened to us in times of cashless policy, where people do not have cash, and we see people reducing the price of their goods in order to make sure they are solid, is akin to what may happen in the rural area, not indirectly in different, but then people in rural area do not have the same income base as opposed to those in the urban area. So you cannot put a price of somebody in the urban area who is earning a high significant income to that person that is also earning lower income in the rural area, and then expect them to patronize your goods.
Thank you so much for your expertise on the news. Abubakar Umar, financial analyst. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.